All right, folks, it's Thanksgiving morning when I'm recording this. Look, it's still a few hours before the food is ready, so I got time to get things done at my house before I drive down to get a plate. But essentially, I don't want to waste a lot of time. Beyond the Gates this week was kind of meh. The cat episode, that's what I'm calling Monday's episode. It was frustrating because I'm just sitting here like, thank goodness for Danny. I mean, I feel like if Danny and Cat had more, if Kat's going to the wrong people. If she spoke to Aunt Danny, I feel like she would get way more understanding. Well, no, maybe that's not a good thing because Nicole might be fearful that her daughter being influenced by Kat could mean somebody's going to pull a gun on somebody. But either way, the fact that Danny understands completely how Kat feels and doesn't want to break bread with her, I'm in total agreement. And I love how Kat called out her dad at the end of the episode. Well, towards the end of the episode. But regardless, I'm giving this one a 8 only because Danny made this episode for me. So let's get into it. She's at the country club with Nicole and Anita, and they talk about whether or not Eric Forrester was the same silver fox he was the last time she saw him. And Danny admits that they canceled the job in LA to photo shoot and they just went for the honeymoon. And she put her marriage first and is confident that other opportunities will come along. Even though doing this one shoot could have been the gateway to many more, but I digress. Anita's glad she and Andre are building something special, and she admits that she's fallen in love with him. And that's when Anita offers some platitudes about it, and Danny shows off her wedding band. And she didn't know how good it felt to be loved, flaws and all. And that's when they discuss Thanksgiving until Nicole steps out to take a phone call. Now, across the country club, Bill and Tomas arrive, and Bill wants to thank him for being such a valuable asset at the firm and for all of his good work. And look, that's the thing. Tomas might be a piece of work in his personal life, but when it comes to his job, he's really good at it. And that's why he's there to discuss the future at the firm, considering that, Tomas was nervous when he got the invite to lunch. But, Tomas mentions how he sees himself there at the firm for a long time. And Tomas, asks if he can fill in where he's at the firm. Basically, it's like, so Haley and I are heading to St. Bart's for a few weeks and was wondering if you could take on some more responsibility. And that's pretty dang good. But the thing is, from across the room, Bill can't take his eyes off Danny as she beams about how much she loves her new husband. And Bill mentions that he hopes his personal life will be a source of support, especially what happened with Mike. And he wants his workers to be family oriented, which some fans take as Tomas's push in the direction of possibly proposing to Kat. Now, as a single man, self-employed and whatnot, I get it. It sucks, but in the work environment and in terms of getting like loans and things like that, being single is a detriment. But when it comes to business, I get it because people tend to look at family, men, for example, as a bet. It's like, well, yeah, it might be a good job to hire this guy because we can tell he's dedicated and committed if he's married and has a family. But then again, it's like if somebody, I don't know. I don't want to bring personal bias into it, but I get it. After what happened with Mike, he wants to see if he can find somebody who's, more stable, if you will, as opposed to misogynist, I guess is what he's trying to say. But it's like, I mean, family oriented is one thing, but dude, you cheated. Like, Mike is a piece of work, but let's not forget you had an affair on your wife with one of your employees at the firm. So, I mean, it's really hard for you to kind of say, I want my workers to be family oriented. I don't know. All right, so speaking of family, we go over to the police station, and Jacob and Marcel watch Elon on the laptop talking about putting evidence together to get Leslie put into prison. So that's when Jacob and Marcel get into it over the Duprees getting off for suspect things in the past, and Elon, breaks up the scuffle between them. And that's when Marcel takes off, and Elon starts talking about Isaiah turning down his mother's invitation to Thanksgiving dinner. He's mad, but glad that Jacob and Naomi will be there. And Jacob offers to ask Isaiah to come, but Elon's like, no, if he doesn't want to come, he's not coming. And the thing is, he shouldn't have to ask. And he complains about Isaiah doing things to get himself arrested to embarrass him back in the day. And Jacob stands up for his brother, because, you know, he always looked at me as like the golden child. And Elon denies feeling that way about it. Yeah, but we know it's true. So, we shift gears to another father and child when Kat's happy that Ted came by for an invitation to spend Thanksgiving together. And she thinks that the invitation is going to be anti-Eva. But as soon as she finds... This was essentially, hey, Kat, would you like to spend Thanksgiving with me? Kat was like, who all going to be over there? That's essentially what this was. And Ted urges her to let go of her anger. But she thinks that her dad's being selfish. And it's like, look, if you want to make good memories, that's fine. And he's like, yeah, I want to make good memories for the three of us. No, you mean Eva. And that's when Kat hasn't come first since Ted found out that Eva is his child. And that's when Ted claims that I value all of my kids equally, but Kat says that's not it. Why does she have to change? Why do I have to change? Why do I have to accept this? And I can't stop you from having a relationship with Eva, but I won't be there for Thanksgiving. Now, I get that Kat choosing her, but it's not really... I mean, for her to say I haven't come first, does that mean when it comes to her and Martin, she always came first? That's the thing, because I've been saying this for a while. I've been team Kat, but on some elements I don't agree with. You cannot stop Eva from calling Ted her dad, her father. And yeah, Ted wants to make up for lost time. However, I think we can all agree that, look, the affair happened. There's nothing we can do about that. But I think had Ted put more effort into trying to make things work with Nicole, we wouldn't be looking at him with the side eye now. Because now, he sent flowers once or twice, and that was it. And it's like, I tried. I'm like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't. So that's when we go over to Leslie and Eva at Uptown talking about things. And look, honestly, anytime it's... I know some fans complain about, oh, every time Andre and Danny are on screen, they're on the couch or in bed talking about their feelings. And when Leslie and Eva are on screen, all they're talking about is their, hey, our schemes have worked. Everything is working out in our favor. But either way, I like watching it. So they talk about past Thanksgivings together and that the diner is going to be different this year. And Eva's happy about, her dad wanting her to be a part of his life. And that's when she jets and Marcel shows up and greets Leslie, offering to get her a drink. And that's when she realized he's a cop. And he thinks that she's trouble, but she blames it on that self-righteous cop Jacob for, giving her a reputation around the office, it seems. And that's when he agrees that Jacob is a bit of a thorn in his side. And the thing is, we used to be partners. So they introduce each other and they discuss Thanksgiving. And he tells her that his wife is choosing the option to divorce him soon. But it doesn't matter because my retirement's all mapped out. If I'm not mistaken, isn't Marcel not married? He could just be putting up a cover story right now. Because I know he mentioned, retiring to like Florida with a female name, but then we turn out that, who we thought was a woman, he's actually talking about his boat or yacht. And if she takes his assets, he won't be able to sail in the Caribbean. And that's when Leslie thinks that'd be a shame if she took all of his stuff in the divorce. So he talks about his wife, and Leslie jokes about sunbathing on Sheila's deck. Yeah, Sheila, that's the name of the boat. So, after Marcel reminds her that she said earlier that she was hot for a doctor, she shrugs it off and calls it a bit of a situation ship. Haha, get it, Sheila, ship. Unless he makes a move, or unless Ted makes a move on her, she's a free agent. So, that's when we go over to the food court, and Eva's there with Isaiah. And he just came back from a run, and she updates him on Peaches and calls her the only person who can keep her mother in line. So, the thing is, she's concerned if Peaches dies, then her mom's obsession with Ted might get even worse. So Isaiah's been wondering what would happen if they weren't interrupted after that kiss, and mentions how Eva's like his dream girl who's pretty special and he wants to prove it to her. So as they're about to kiss, that's when Ted interrupts, and that's when Isaiah introduces himself, and he jets, and Ted invites Eva to Thanksgiving since Kat turned him down. And Eva's sorry, but she made other plans with Leslie, so I can't leave her alone. So Ted goes, and Eva remembers, Leslie kicking her out of the house and treating her like dirt, and how Ted was sweet to her on her birthday. So that's when Isaiah comes back around, and she fills him in about the Thanksgiving request, and she opted to choose her mother instead. So they talk about the protective dad vibes Ted was giving off, and that's when they go in to kiss again, but his phone goes off, and then it's his brother inviting him to Thanksgiving at the country club, and he said he'll consider it. So after they get off the phone, they'd agree to plan to meet up after Thanksgiving and compare notes, so that they start kissing again. Now we go back to the country club, and Nicole gets off her phone call as Kat comes in, and she complains about her dad's invite to Thanksgiving with Eva. And that's when Nicole's like, oh, I think it's a good idea. And that's when Kat's like, wait, why do you think now is a good time to start to make peace? And Kat thinks that, she's an afterthought, but Nicole thinks that she should just adjust to the new family dynamic before Kat decides to go off to work out. My thing is this, Nicole, how would you feel if you got the invite to the dinner for Thanksgiving and Leslie and Eva would be there? Man, I swear. Don't get me wrong, though. Kat's going to have to adjust to the new family dynamic, whether she likes it or not. That doesn't mean she has to make peace with Eva, but she just has to understand now she's not the only princess, if you will, in Ted's eyes. So, back over at the table, Anita's sorry that Danny has to sit in close proximity to Bill so soon after her honeymoon, and Danny's like, oh, I don't care. It's like, I got a phone call from him while I was in LA, and she says that she saw her old friend Damone Roberts, and Anita's shook by it. The eyebrow king himself. And that's when Danny mentions how he's going to come and donate an eyebrow package. I guess this is for Winterfest. I could be wrong. So they get back to discussing Bill, and she bashes him, saying that he can't be friends with anyone since he always has an agenda. So over at the table with Tomas, Bill tells Tomas we can't have any sort of scandals. And that's when Tomas sighs and looks over at Danny, and Bill smiles, knowing that, hey, you know what? I got issues, but clients crave stability, okay? So Tomas doesn't think his personal life is going to be any sort of distractions. And that's when Nicole comes back to the table and tells them about the whole situation with Kat. And Anita and specifically Danny understand Kat's feelings, and that's when Danny decides to compare Eva to Looney Leslie. But Nicole defends Eva, who's a sweet girl who just wants to be here for that. Like, what the heck, Nicole? Sheesh. So that's when Kat comes around, and Tomas comes up to her, and she tells him about her Thanksgiving dilemma. And Tomas has a solution to come away with him alone, and they decide to go out of town for the holiday. So as we get towards the end of the episode, Bill comes over to the Danny at the table to talk Winterfest, and he hopes the honeymoon went well, and she admits that it did, and she gloats about it, and Bill is obviously pissed off by it. No, Bill, it was all cool when you were flaunting your new trophy wife and forcing the Duprees and everybody to come to the wedding. Nah, man, what you tripping for? Okay, then to round out the episode, Ted shows up at Uptown, and it looks like he's a bit jealous because he sees Leslie and Marcel together. And that's when Leslie tells Marcel the doctor just walked in. And it's like, I'll think of you the next time she gives the next police. She'll think of you. I'll think of you the next time I decide to donate to the next police fundraiser. So she goes to Teddy Bear, and he tells her that Marcel's a cop. What did you do now? And that's when he's called out. He gets called out for being jealous. And he tells her about spending Thanksgiving with Eva and her, and Leslie's all in. So that's the end of Monday's episode. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.